So the Australian Open draw was delayed overnight due to the uncertainty over the visa status of Novak Djokovic.
Yeah, the draw did eventually go ahead, with no decision yet to be taken by the government over whether or not the world number one's visa will be cancelled.
Well, Djokovic has been named in the draw, and he knows who he could face in the first round. We'll reveal that to you in a moment. But, of course, he could still face deportation. Last week, he had his visa cancelled on arrival in Melbourne before winning a legal battle that allowed him to stay. However, Immigration Minister Alex Hawke could still overrule that decision.
Well, Australia's Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce said that Djokovic, who admitted he attended an interview with a French journalist in December in the knowledge that he had tested positive for coronavirus, must abide by the rules like anyone else.
Obviously, most of us thought that because Mr Djokovic hadn't been vaxxed twice, that he would be asked to leave. Well, that was our view, but it wasn't the court's view. The court has had a different view. It was about process. The court went down the path of process, but the facts remain the same. He still has, the minister still has the discretion to ask him to leave, and I'll leave it up to the minister as to whether he does that or not. I think you have to be frank. The vast majority of Australians said didn't like the idea that another individual, whether they're a tennis player or the King of Spain or the Queen of England, can come up here and have a different set of rules to what everybody else has to deal with. Whether they agree with the rules or not, they believe they should abide by the rules, and that was the issue with Mr Djokovic.
So then, Djokovic for now named in the draw, and he has been drawn to face fellow Serbian player Miomir Kekmanovic in the first round as his preparations for the Australian Open continued. He could potentially face Rafa Nadal in the semis.
OK, so to discuss the latest chapter in this Djokovic saga, we've been joined by the former Great Britain number one, Andrew Castle, here on Sky Sports News. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for sparing the time to speak to us. I mean, this is a story which just rumbles on and on and on and on, Andrew. And the latest impact was the delay of the Australian Open draw actually taking place by 75 minutes. No explanation given. How damaging is this whole story, not just on this tournament, but for the world of tennis as a whole?
Well, in the absence of information, conspiracy theory takes over. So it was an interesting 75 minutes. The Prime Minister of Australia, Barnaby Joyce, who you've just had on there, his direct boss. I guess there was a cabinet meeting, and Novak Djokovic was not mentioned by Prime Minister Scott Morrison afterwards, apart from to say that the Immigration Minister, Alex Hawke, is the one who will make the ultimate decision on Novak Djokovic. He has the ultimate powers. I mean, I think Australia would look a little bit silly, the Australian government, if the court says one thing, i.e. that Novak Djokovic was allowed in on a medical exemption, and then powers to kick the 9-time champion world number one out. Go ahead. Yes, as Mr Joyce said, it would be a very popular move, and with elections just 4.5 months away, being popular is something that politicians aim for. So there is still politics involved in this. Internationally, I think it makes Australia look like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Meantime, Novak Djokovic continues to turn up, continues to practice, and continues to look very good. Incidentally, the view from the locker room was feed into the TV screens was blocked the other day when Novak came out onto Rod Laver Arena, and the sound was cut as well. So in effect, it was a closed session for Novak Djokovic, such is the interest in him. And I think the view from the locker room is surprised that he's kind of getting away with one here. And I say that advisedly, because is he getting away with one? And how consistent have Australia been? They let some people in with exactly the same exemption, tennis officials and that Czech player, Renata Vorokova, but they didn't let him in. So, God knows what will happen next. But it's certainly a situation where preparations ahead of a Grand Slam are certainly effective for Novak. But he likes it when the world's against him.
Are you surprised, Andrew, just how long this decision has taken? I've been on for the last 3 mornings here on Sky Sports News, and we've seen it rumble on and rumble on with not much progression, it would seem. Are you surprised that it got to the stage where the draw was actually made and a decision still hasn't been?
Well, The thing about it is, if a decision is not made, then he's in the country and he's playing. So the presumption is that he's going to stay. So the answer to your question, am I surprised, is yeah, the wheels of justice, if they're turning, are turning extremely slowly. I don't know whether they're just gaining more information on Novak Djokovic's movements after he was tested positive on a PCR on December the 16th, because that is his claim and that's what he put down on the visa. I don't know whether they're looking into the fact that he was in Spain on December the 28th. I mean, I happen to know he was there because I got a WhatsApp from a mate who said that he was on court with him. So we knew he was there. Now Novak says that it was a member of his team that signed the visa application form for Australia and made a mistake inadvertently, saying that he hadn't travelled in the previous 14 days. I mean, do you deport the bloke for that? I mean, I suppose it's a false declaration if you're being a stickler. And let's be honest, being a stickler in times of COVID is what you should be. So, you know, it rumbles on, but I'm very surprised that this decision has not been made quicker than this. It doesn't look great once again. Meantime, there is a tennis tournament ahead for 127 other men and 128 women.
You mentioned very briefly, you alluded to Novak Djokovic's preparations, but the fact that he also likes it when the world is against him, Andrew. So how do you sort of pair up those two things in terms of his current state of mind and readiness? Because, yeah, I mean, I remember that Wimbledon final in 2019 against Roger Federer, and pretty much all of centre court was behind the Swiss, but it was Djokovic who came out triumphant. I guess that he just uses that as fuel to his fire, doesn't he?
If you're a great sports person, if you're somebody that gets the job done under any circumstances, if physically you're at the end of your tether, and we all love sport, we know what it takes to find the very depths of your in your soul, your physicality. You know, Novak has gone there many, many times, and you get conditioned to do that. You get conditioned as an individual sports person, particularly, to be able to call on resources that other people in everyday life don't always have to call upon, and Novak will be doing that now. It's an individual sport. He's thinking about himself. He's got his team around him. No doubt his accommodation is fantastic as well. So all he can do is, I know it's a cliche, is just hit one ball at a time. So just get yourself ready. I thought it was very ironic that he's been drawn against Kecmanovic in the first round, a fellow Serbian. So all he can do is just hang about. But it would certainly feel like a heavy weight on the shoulders for him. 7 matches between him and tennis history, and he's the only person that anybody's talking, only person who anybody's talking about. Maybe he likes that.
Well, actually, Andrew, I'm going to talk about someone else for a second with you, if you don't mind, because we have seen the draw, and we've seen that Emma Raducanu has got a tricky draw as well. Sloane Stephens, two former US Open winners now. We've seen that she's not in the best of form going into this tournament. What do you think we can expect from her?
Well, the form that you talk about coming in was hampered really by having had COVID and being in isolation. Then she pulled out of the tournament before the one that she's just played. She played and lost 6-love, 6-1 to Emma Raducanu, who's a really good 22-year-old from Kazakhstan, by the way. Keep an eye on her for the next couple of years. So she lost. I mean, she was actually 6-love, 3-love down in that match. Got a game and lost 6-love, 6-1. So yeah, difficult preparation. But you know, this is going to happen. What we saw at the US Open last year was so phenomenal. To go from schoolgirl to Grand Slam champion without losing a set. Now, she didn't beat any top 10 players there, but she beat everyone that was in front of her in straight sets. I'm not going to say it was an aberration, but it was one of those things where, you know, it's almost like her career has gone into a sort of a reverse now. She's achieved the great thing that everybody aims for, but now she has to build again, because life on the tour, day in, day out, is very different. It's a grind. You've got to get used to it. The other players get to know you a little bit. And you know what? When it's a job, it's not a thrill to turn up every day. I know I like being on the box. You guys in the studio, you'd never consider it work, right? Yes, you would. And for her, going onto the court every single day is at times going to feel like work. So, you know, she's building at the moment. I think the draw against Sloane Stephens is absolutely fascinating. Stephens, even though she's a Grand Slam champion, would almost be considered an underachiever for her talent. She's wonderfully gifted. It's almost great news that she's playing a big name, although unseeded in the first round, Emma. I wish her luck this year. Stay patient. She's utterly brilliant.
Well, we've got you with us, Andrew. Let's talk about another Andrew, Knight of the Realm, Andy Murray. Just got a walkover in his quarter-final in the Sydney International against David Goffin, so through to the semis. So he's had some decent court time ahead of Melbourne. With him being drawn against the man who he beat very recently in the last few days in Sydney, for Andy, I mean, I guess, look, he's been here so many times before. Would he sort of fall into the bracket of that sort of dangerous floating player that no one really wants to face in the Australian Open?
Oh, absolutely. He's a 5-time finalist at the Australian Open and is clearly utterly motivated to be out there. He beat, this name is difficult for a commentator, by the way, Nicolas Basilashvili. Thumbs up.
Two thumbs up, 4 thumbs up over here.
It's been difficult. He's one of the hardest hitting guys out there, and Andy is a brilliant counterpuncher. So they've had a classic contest, and now they play again. Incidentally, I didn't know that David Goffin had pulled out of that match, so thank you for that news. Goffin plays Dan Evans, who's also playing very well, the British #2. In the first round in the Aussie. I thought that was an interesting one as well. Goffin, the man who Murray beat in that 5th and deciding Davis Cup rubber back in 2015 to actually win the Davis Cup. So Goffin not playing against Andy Murray in Sydney, saving himself for Dan Evans in the first round of the Australian Open. You can't expect Andy to win this tournament, but nobody wants to play him. I mean, he might win a round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds. Look, if he gets his teeth into it, he knows how to get the job done at the top level. You just got to marvel at the bloke still being out there and not hobbling. I mean, he wants to play, feels like he can win. Who would deny him a place?
What a competitor. We'll keep a very close eye on Andy, on Dan, on Emma, and of course, on the Novak Djokovic situation.
Indeed.
Andrew, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Good talking to you. Take care.